Good afternoon. We're getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson and just before the News Blitz here on 790. Motec on Money, live on the air on 790 KBC. Streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com, and you're on demand. Motec on Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. A positive finish to a losing week on Wall Street. Stocks, cryptos, and precious metals all rallying today. Wrapping up a week in which we saw a steep sell-off in treasuries and a rise in treasury yields, dramatic rise as a matter of fact. The Dow coming in for a closing gain today of nearly, well, make that over 500 points, 518 to be precise, at 53,277. The S&P 500 of 33 at 7,674, and the NASDAQ of 113 at 26,180. The yield on the 10-year note is up there at 4.74%. Looks like the Dow moved up with gains in some of the healthcare names, especially Merck and Johnson & Johnson. The financials also giving the market a boost. Robinhood shares popped about 14%. Coinbase moved up 8%. SpaceX closing down for the week, falling back to its IPO price. Another share unlock hit, and new rocket competition headlines hit the stock as well. SpaceX shares did move up today, though the stock was down about 2% for the week. It had dropped below the 135 IPO price, and we'll bring up the closing quote here, up nearly $3 today at 136 and change. California Attorney General Bonta says it would take robust concessions from Paramount boss David Ellison to settle an antitrust lawsuit brought by 12 state attorneys general against his acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery. Bonta locking horns with Paramount CEO David Ellison in a lawsuit filed regarding the mega merger that will impact Hollywood and Hollywood jobs. Coming up later this hour, I'll be speaking with Michael Gates, who is the Republican candidate running against Bonta in the Attorney General race here in California. The former 10-year city attorney for Huntington Beach and Orange County, who also served in the U.S. Department of Justice, Michael Gates, will be joining me live later this hour to discuss that case, as well as other legal matters facing California, and crime, of course, and homelessness. The national debt, meanwhile, hit a major milestone this week, surpassing $40 trillion for the first time in August 2026. It's a month for the history books here, and someone got out the calculator. This roughly equals $117,000 per person, driven by decades of budget deficits, tax cuts, rising health care, and entitlement costs, soaring interest payments, and the list goes on. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about that and more with the leading taxpayer advocate nationwide, Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, will be joining us live later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, and the whole works now. A very eventful week with a lot of moving parts. Tracking it all, Daniel Ives, partner and senior managing director, tech analyst at Yorkville Ives, which launched last month. Frequent guest on all of the major financial networks, and also he's got a lot of fashion sense, too, with his own fashion line, danivesclothing.com. Daniel Ives, thank you very much for taking the call to wrap up the week with us here.
Of course. It's great to be with the fashion icon himself, Motec.
Well, thank you very much. You stood out at the corner of Wilshire Boulevard and Santa Monica Boulevard at the Milken Institute Global Conference with your fashion, which everybody was talking about when you were here, and hope to see you out here again soon. But what a week it was with the Treasury market in focus and the stock market rallying today, but down for the week, and PS cryptos rallying big. Give us your impressions of what happened this week.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a tug of war that's essentially going on between bond market and equities, because what we're seeing with yields, I think that continues to play out combined with what we see with oil in the Middle East. Yeah, crypto, I mean, you've talked about this, really for the last few months, huge bounce back in Bitcoin, but especially in Ethereum as well. And that, I think, signals that you're starting to see, even though there's a little bit of a stalling on the equity market, I think a lot of this is yield-driven, given what's happened in debt.
Yeah, what's your impression here of the Treasury buyback plan? Yields did rise despite that. We're looking at the yield in the 10-year note now at 4.74%. The 30-year yield also moved up. What's going on here? A lot of speculation here as to maybe another financial crisis, God forbid. What do you see happening?
Yeah, I just think this is. You're seeing a lot of scrutiny, especially too because of tech companies, big tech starting to raise more capital relative to debt markets. Does that stall the AI trade? I mean, Frank, I just view this as it's growing pains in this trade, and you're going to continue to have these sort of gut check moments, and I think ultimately yields come down. I think a lot of this is, and we talked about this when wars came in. It's really the bond market testing wars, but you're not going to get a hike coming out of the gate. And I think right now, whether it's Besant or whether it's Warsh, it's just a laser focus what's happening in terms of not just yields, but obviously what's happened in terms of the inflation picture. And that's what oil plays so much into in terms of the Middle East. And that, I think, is creating this sort of gyrating market, especially when it comes to equities.
Yeah, been some commentary again today about possible liquidity issues. Ray Dalio, I guess, spoke today, said the Besant move is a sign that a debt crisis is nearing. He likes gold and Bitcoin. A lot of talk like that this week, and also the intervention in the currency markets to boost the yen. What some unusual moving parts here?
Yeah, I think moving parts, but the bears have called 10 of the last two crises, the last 20 years, right? So I think part of the problem is that you'll get a lot of noise around this. But I think Besant's handling it well. And I think this is going to continue to be this sort of tug of war as yields eventually get pushed down. And I think you can talk around the bond market, right? And I think the bond market sort of dictates what's going on. And it is a general Goldilocks environment, especially what's happened in terms of the tech trade and what's happening with the AI revolution. But that is putting more pressure on yields in the bond market as you have to raise more capital to fund the $4 to $5 trillion that's going to be spent over the coming years.
On there live with Daniel Ives, a leading tech analyst, partner and senior managing director, and tech analyst at Yorkville Ives. Let's talk more about cryptos. A lot of people have smiles on their faces heading into the weekend with Bitcoin rallying big right now at around 78,000 all of a sudden. ETH is at around 2,500. Even Doge made a 2-cent move, it looks like, up again today to 9 cents. What's the buzz in the crypto space here? I know you're close with some of the major players there, and we've seen some pretty big predictions again this week on where Bitcoin might go from here. Give us your reaction to this big rally.
Yeah, I think a lot of smiles if you're a Carbone in South Beach, right? Look, I think crypto's gone through just a very significant sort of testing of the market. And I think what you're seeing in terms of Ethereum and what you're seeing in terms of Bitcoin, I think it's an important move. I do think there was just a lot of leverage taken out of the system, and that's all now starting to play out. And it's positive. Look, it comes down to, can you see triple digits on Bitcoin? Ethereum, and Tom Lee, good friends, obviously talked about it a lot. The market's reacting well, and that's an important sign, relative to what we've seen the last few months.
I remember we were talking about WorldCoin earlier this year. Are you still doing anything with WorldCoin?
Yeah, that's something where I'm still a believer, but obviously I'm not chairman anymore, and Tom Lee is very focused on that as well as the team at ECO, but it speaks to the broader view. Crypto is not going away, and we're going to continue to kind of see these ebbs and flows, and I think this is a very positive sign for from a market perspective, what we see in crypto this week.
All right, a lot of people still following SpaceX very closely, and it's had a bit of hit another speed bump this week. Up today, though, up nearly 3 to 136 and change. What are you doing with SpaceX here?
Look at the testing, right? I mean, you have another lockup in terms of SpaceX, and I think that's caused definitely some pressure there. But as me and you've talked about, right, it's like these things are not determined over the course of a few months. It's really, especially when you look at the transformational growth names, you got to look at them over years. But the valuation, everything that it creates an opportunity as well as a challenge. And for Musk and SpaceX, it's now proving it step by step. And Anthropic, OpenAI, and many of the technology stalwarts that are private, they're also watching this carefully, see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Anthropic and OpenAI, those are the next big IPOs, right? Any news related to those?
We got to see. I mean, it definitely feels like in the fall where you'll see Anthropic, OpenAI probably later this year, early 27, and it's an important time for the market because these are two of the key stalwarts when it comes to the tech industry, AI, and you need to have success in Anthropic, in OpenAI for the broader tech trade.
All right, we've gone this long without mentioning NVIDIA. What about your buddy Jensen and NVIDIA?
Yeah, look, Godfather of AI, we'll hear from him next week relative to earnings, and I think it all comes down to he'll be wearing the black leather jacket, and it comes down to what earnings are because no one has a better perch to what's going on in the AI revolution than Jensen and NVIDIA. And I continue to expect not just great news, but it speaks to the broader tech trade where I think we're in the third inning of this AI revolution.
Is that the same jacket every time, or does he have several?
He has several. He has the crocodile. He has the regular leather. But I think you'll have the traditional black leather jacket next week. And but I keep waiting for you to break out your black leather jacket. I've been disappointed the last few times I've seen you that you're not wearing it.
I do have one. It's been a while. You're right. We'll try to correct that. But yes, thanks for mentioning that. And turning now to the Middle East, obviously a lot of wild cards there. And oil did move higher this week, up about 6%, I believe, hovering around 86 in New York now and getting up to 93 in London. Obviously, that fueled a lot of the nervousness about inflation and what's going on. How do you see this play out here, and where are you placing your bets as far as oil is concerned?
Yeah, look, definitely nervousness relative to Strait and Middle East and what we're seeing there. But I think there's a key week ahead to see what happens when it comes to any sort of resolution. But it all plays into the inflation trade as well, because you need to see a calming of it relative to prices.
All right, and last but not least, gold and silver rallying this week. Gold hovering at around 46.61 here at last check, and silver hovering around $70 an ounce, well off the record highs, but higher than they were just recently.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing the market test what's happening in gold and silver. But I think the signs that we're seeing for crypto could be positive when it comes to the commodities. But then also it's relative to what we're seeing in yields and the worries about inflation. That's why this is all a Jenga puzzle being put together. But it's still bullish, and I think very bullish relative to the broader market and the spreading now that we're seeing of a lot of the growth and sort of risk assets.
All right, and we got the retail numbers this week. Anything that popped out there, and anything you're doing in the retail world?
Yeah, I think it continues to be this sort of K-shaped economy. Some positive signs, but obviously a lot more positive signs at the higher end of the market. And for this, you need to really see a better economic picture overall, not just K-shaped. And I think that's something from a retail perspective. I'd call it some positive signs, but you want to see it more, what I'd say, a healthier consumer play out over the coming year.
Dan, thank you very much for wrapping up this important week, and we'll let you get on to your weekend and make your fashion selections for this evening and so forth, and look forward to speaking with you hopefully again next week. Thank you very much for taking the call here today.
When I'm drinking my rosé tonight, I'll be thinking about Motec.
Appreciate that. Cheers to you, Dan.
Thanks.
Thank you very much
You
for
too.
joining us live here. Motec on Money on 790 KBC. That is Daniel Ives, the leading tech analyst, partner and senior managing director at tech analyst at Yorkville Ives, and also, by the way, has his own fashion line, DanIvesClothing.com. Live with us here,
the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
These players are battered and exhausted, but you don't hurt like this if you don't care about this team, about this country, about this
I
game.
think you can feel the intensity.
The goals, the energy, wow, look at us.
Here in the U.S., I have got some news for you. There's so much more to come. My name is Megan Klingberg, and we're just getting started.
The U.S. Soccer Podcast, presented by Henkel. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Hey, soccer fans! U.S. Soccer's gold medal winning women's national team faces World Cup champion Spain in an epic showdown at Audi Field in D.C. on October 10th. Don't miss this incredible match. Snag your tickets at ussoccer.com/tickets.
positive finish to a losing week on Wall Street. The Dow up 518 to 53,277. S&P 500 up 33 at 7,674. And the NASDAQ up 113 at 26,180. Looks like for the week, the NASDAQ pulled back 2.1%. The S&P 500 down just about 1.5%. The Dow down nearly 1% for the week. Those Treasury note yields were in focus this week, and looks like they perked up again today with the yield in the 10-year note down at 4.74%, with mortgage rates hovering at or near the highs of 2026. Gold getting a pop today, up nearly $100, up 90 and change here at 4,661.60. Silver also moving higher today at 69.01. The price of oil up 6% this week on the latest developments or lack of developments in the Persian Gulf, as the case may be. The price of oil in New York now trading at around $86.64 a barrel, and in London up around $93 a barrel. The Brent crude price global benchmark. Cryptos, though, the star of the day once again, and this week with Bitcoin soaring up another 500 or so now to, in fact, up about 1,500 here at the moment. It's 78,550. ETH at 2,522, and Doge making a move on the upside this week at 9 cents. Crypto-related stocks also moving higher. We see a Strategy, Michael Saylor's Bitcoin-focused equity, up nearly $7 at the close today at $119.25. Bitmine Immersion also moving up $1.26 at 22 and change. That's Thomas Lee's stock that's focused on Ethereum. Mara up 11 cents at $11.26. Coinbase popping more than $14 at $181 and change. And looks like the other names in the crypto world moved higher. Let's bring up BITO, another ETF related to Bitcoin, moving up 60 cents today at $10.41. And BitX, that's another one. That's the 2 times Bitcoin Strategy ETF. BitX moving up $1.82 today to $17.18 a share. The volatility index in all this, by the way, pulling back today by 5.5%. SpaceX shares, kind of a rough week for SpaceX once again, but moving higher today, up nearly $3 at $136.97. Tesla shares getting a pop of more than $17 at $362.86. And NVIDIA stock pulling back $2 and change to $214.72. Motec Money continues here in 790 KABC. Will there be a Hollywood ending to the Paramount Warner Brothers Discovery merger deal? Paramount's $110 billion acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery did get antitrust approval from the U.S. Department of Justice already a couple of months ago, but now this mega merger, so much riding on it here in Hollywood, faces a legal block from a coalition of 12 state attorneys general, including here in California. A lot riding on this upcoming court case, with the current Attorney General Rob Bonta saying this week it would take robust concessions from Paramount boss David Ellison to settle an antitrust lawsuit brought by 12 state attorneys general against his acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery. Today we also heard, this week we also heard from LA Mayor Karen Bass urging the Attorney General and Paramount to resolve their differences and work urgently to find a resolution to the 12-state antitrust lawsuit that is blocking Paramount's takeover of Warner Brothers Discovery. Internationally, this deal has been approved by something like 60 countries. Joining us now is Michael Gates, Republican candidate running for California Attorney General against Rob Bonta in the upcoming November 3rd general election. He's part of Republican Steve Hilton, who's running for governor's golden ticket. Michael Gates, former 10-year city attorney for Huntington Beach in Orange County, who's also served in the U.S. Department of Justice. Michael Gates, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful to have you with us. And let me ask you this regarding this big merger deal now and this lawsuit. Give us your thoughts about what's happening. And if you were Attorney General, how would you handle this situation?
Yeah, so this lawsuit is nothing more than a scam, frankly. I'm not afraid to say it, in part because the 12 attorneys general, like you mentioned, who lined up to sue the Paramount Warner Brothers merger, basically it's very, very partisan. They're all Democrat attorneys general. They are making this a political endeavor. It is a scam. It is not legitimate. As you mentioned, not only the federal government, but also other large potential stakeholders, right? Like those interested in the outcome of this merger have already cleared that. And that includes the European Union, other countries, and the federal government. So this has been cleared by probably some of the biggest stakeholders or potential entities who might be impacted by this. They have cleared it. This is a nothing burger. I will add to this that I did antitrust. On behalf of Huntington Beach, I had a case involving antitrust. I litigated it myself. I was in federal court, district court. I was also in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and that was the case that actually was about to go up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that was the case in which I got certified to appear before the U.S. Supreme Court to make arguments. So I have personally litigated antitrust cases before. Rob Bonta is clearly on a political errand here to try to go after Paramount, Ellison, because they are not allies. And he's doing it as a political favor to Netflix, who actually is a political ally. So Netflix, if you look into it, has funneled nearly $1 million in donations in Rob Bonta's direction. And so he's doing it as a political favor. Netflix actually attempted to acquire Warner Brothers originally, and that merger fell through. Rob Bonta, notably, our Attorney General, notably, had no objection to that merger. Why? Because he's political friends and allies with Netflix, but he is not with Paramount. So there could not be a clearer record that Rob Bonta is on a political errand to try to disrupt this merger or destroy or stop this merger. And what people in California need to realize is this is going to cost tens of thousands of jobs. So they're saying that it's approximately 5,000 jobs just in the industry, entertainment industry alone, if this merger does not go through. But then think of all of the surrounding jobs that support the TV production and film production industry that will be at risk if this merger does not go through. Paramount has already threatened to leave the state of California and to relocate to another state. This is a disaster for California. It's a disaster for working Californians who want to be in the production industry and or young people, maybe in college, who want to get into the production industry. This is an absolute disaster. As AG myself, I would put an end to these lawsuits, and I would stop the lawsuits, any lawsuits that are driven by politics that seek to drive big business like Paramount out of the state.
On the air live with Michael Gates, Republican candidate running for California Attorney General and challenging the Democratic incumbent Rob Bonta. Let me ask you this. How do you see this play out? Do we have the timetable here on these hearings? And will you be participating in some fashion with your legal expertise?
Well, I'm happy to appear as an audience member in court, obviously, for any hearings that are put on the schedule. I know by October 1st, Paramount is threatening that if there are not concessions by the state of California that Paramount will start the process of leaving California. I already sent a formal letter to Rob Bonta's office, basically demanding a reconsideration and, frankly, a dismissal of the antitrust lawsuit that Rob Bonta filed against Paramount and Warner Bros. Because it is an illegitimate lawsuit. It's a frivolous lawsuit. These types of weaponized cases should not be allowed to proceed against anybody, much less a large entity like Paramount. So I have already called for the ending of this type of politicization, but I do think that Rob Bonta is going to continue. He keeps coming out with new headlines, new quotes every other day, beating his chest, pounding the table, demanding that Paramount make concessions when Paramount has already gotten this deal blessed by the federal government, the European Union, China, other large stakeholders who may have an interest in this merger have already analyzed it, weighed in on it, and said, this is a nothing burger, this is fine, please proceed, you have our blessing. Rob Bonta is an outlier. He is an exception. He is picking a fight for political reasons. I think he believes, frankly, that because this is an election year, this is good politics for him. He's absolutely wrong. Everyday Californians are already suffering. Hardworking Californians are already suffering. And now we're looking at a lawsuit it's going to cost California tens of thousands of jobs. So he's on the wrong side of the politics on this. I'm with everyday Californians who want to keep big business here, keep the entertainment industry here, keep the jobs here, and not have the office of the Attorney General politicized against everyday Californians and against big business.
On the air live with Michael Gates, Republican candidate running against the incumbent Democrat Rob Bonta for California Attorney General. While we have this moment, and you shared your expertise in the antitrust specialty, could you contrast your legal expertise versus Bonta's expertise, especially in the courtroom?
Yeah, well, but Rob Bonta, let's be completely clear and candid about Rob Bonta. He is a career politician. He has spent more time at fancy dinners with lobbyists as a legislator than he has ever spent in the courtroom. He has, in fact, I have tried many multi-million-dollar cases. In trial at court. I've argued various appeals, both at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, the State Court of Appeals. I've argued in various federal district courts throughout the country, and I am certified as a member of the United States Supreme Court. So I have argued in nearly every single type of court in the land. I have tried many multi-million-dollar cases. Rob Bonta has never done anything like this. He is a career politician. He does not know what he's talking about when he's talking about this case or antitrust or Paramount or the merger. He's literally parroting talking points his staff has fed to him. He absolutely does not know this area of law. As I say on the campaign trail, he is not a real attorney. He is a career politician. I am a real attorney. I know this area of law. I've practiced it. I've argued these cases in court. And I can tell you, take it from me, this is not an antitrust concern. And just so the audience knows, antitrust is when huge organizations or businesses get together and they merge and they end up controlling so much of the market that it creates a monopoly and a disadvantage for consumers. That is absolutely not the case here. There is so many entities in the entertainment industry, whether it's streaming like Netflix or Hulu or others. There are traditional entertainment industry players here. There's so much competition that the Paramount Warner Brothers merger is not going to create a threat. It's not going to create a monopoly, and it is not going to hurt the consumer. The only reason Rob Bonta is doing this is because Dave Ellison of Paramount is not a friend to Rob Bonta, has not sucked up to Rob Bonta, has not donated to Rob Bonta, and so Bonta has gone after Ellison and Paramount. And we know this is true, too, because, like I said, the record shows that Netflix, who is a friend and ally to Rob Bonta, has donated nearly $1 million and sent that money toward Rob Bonta to his interests. And so this is all pure politics. People need to know this. Don't take this at face value. peel back the layers, look behind the scenes, and you will see what's really going on. It's pure, dirty politics at play in this case.
Mr. Gates, thank you very much for taking the call here. I wish we had more time, but I have a feeling we'll have the chance to talk to you again as we follow this case now as it moves to the courts, if that's what ends up happening. Michael Gates, Republican candidate running for California Attorney General against the Democratic incumbent Rob Bonta, coming up in the November 3rd election, also part of the Republican gubernatorial candidate Steve Hilton's golden ticket. Michael Gates, former 10-year city attorney in Huntington Beach in the OC, has also served in the U.S. Department of Justice. Mr. Gates, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. We wish you all the best. And
start your day with the morning jolt of Drake C. Told.
See, now it's on demand. My podcast is kind of a radio thing, I think, but also it's a bit of a TV show, and it's about whatever I want it to be. It's listening live as it happened, when it happened, with the instant reaction.
Your home for talking sports.
We go back. The Drake Toll Show, Westwood One Sports Network. And there it will be, on demand, on your radio. Anywhere in the country, I'll see you there.
Westwood One Sports Talk, your home for Drake C. Toll. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Washington, D.C., get ready. The world's best are coming to Audi Field on October 10th. U.S. Soccer's women's national team takes on Spain in a battle between the top two teams in the world. Watch Olympic gold medalists face the reigning FIFA Women's World Cup champions in a star-studded showdown featuring Trinity Rodman and Sophia Smith. One night, two global powers, one unforgettable match. Get your tickets now at ussoccer.com.
The Dow moving higher today, up 518. S&P 500 up 33. The NASDAQ up 113. Up day but losing week. The NASDAQ down 2.1% for the week. The S&P 500 down 1.4%. And the Dow down nearly 1% for the week. We did see oil spike 6% this week. Right now hovering at around $87 a barrel in New York. Cryptos and including Bitcoin soaring this week. Right now Bitcoin is back around 78,500. Ethereum at 2,500 or so. The nation's debt hit a major milestone this week. The U.S. national debt surpassing $40 trillion for the first time. The total roughly equals $117,000 per person, driven by decades of budget deficits, tax cuts, rising health care and entitlement costs, and soaring interest payments. We saw gold as well as digital currencies rise this week on inflation and also the Treasury buying back treasuries, and we saw that yield and spike in the Treasury note yields this week. Let's bring in the leading taxpayer advocate in all this, Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Absolutely. Good to be with you.
Likewise. Thank you very much. I know you've been following all these big stories. First, your reaction, first of all, to the national debt surpassing $40 trillion for the first time this month.
Well, it's gone up quite a bit in the last 20 years. When the Democrats passed all of the entitlement programs in 34 to 36, the New Deal, and then 30 years later, 64 to 66, the Great Society, and then they almost passed the Green New Deal, which was supposed to dwarf the others. We have a debt now of $40 trillion. The Green New Deal was going to cost $90 trillion. We did spend some money, waste some money on some of the more silly things on make-believe energy, but we didn't do $90 trillion. So I guess one way to look at it is it was going to be, if the Republicans hadn't held the House and the Senate, we were going to have, under the Democrats, an increase of $90 trillion every decade, by the way, every decade going out into that was stopped. And what we do need to do is reform the entitlement programs, which means block granting them to the states so that states can take a look and say, how can we save money? Remember, in Minnesota, they don't want to end the money that gets stolen. They're fighting against trying to fix that. And that's okay if they want to do that, but they need to do it with their own money. And the federal government should say, look, we're not going to be shipping out more money. but you decide how you want to spend that which you have on all the various entitlements. But it's the entitlements that are driving and the automatic pilot increases that keep pushing up spending and then also the deficit.
On the Air Live with Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. You probably saw that Wall Street Journal editorial. Economist Dr. Arthur Laffer, who's been a frequent guest on the show over the years, noting President Trump can deliver another significant tax reform without waiting for a rewrite of the tax code and the inflation tax on capital gains. Is that getting your attention?
It certainly is. It's been a project of Americans for Tax Reform since 1992, when it was presented to Bush, who decided not to do it and then lost his presidential election. Here's the good news. That the legal beagles who look at it, the lawyers who look at it, say that it can be done by executive order, by a rulemaking in Treasury, so it doesn't take a House or Senate vote. And the reason is that what you do is you define cost for the cost basis when you sell your home, a business, stocks, crypto, anything that's any property, so that you don't tax the inflation gain. You would say, okay, if the house used to be worth $100,000, now it's worth $200,000, and you sell it, but half of that, $50,000 of that was inflation, you would only pay property taxes, capital gains taxes, not on $100,000 in gain, but at 50, because half of that was inflation. This would be a huge, huge encouragement for people to invest, for people to sell their houses rather than wait until they pass away and get stepped up in basis. It would free up housing for young people and make it easier for young people to buy a house because they sell their savings, stocks, and so on. They don't pay the high capital gains tax on the inflation that took place during Biden. Arthur Laffer is quite correct. This is very important. We're also seeing Larry Kudlow over at Fox speaking for this, and has the strong support of Texas Senate Leader Ted Cruz. It is widely, and again, I've talked to the president twice about this. He thinks it's a great idea. We just need to get them focused on it. The bureaucrats always go, oh, let's not. But I think that it's important to get this done now.
See it tonight, read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Motec on Money, live on the air with Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. Californians will be making a big decision coming up here on this so-called billionaires tax, which apparently will not just affect billionaires, but others potentially. And then you have that so-called pied-à-terre tax in New York City. You've been busy. What's your latest read on this billionaires tax here in California?
Well, a lot of the damage done by the billionaires tax is already done. Even if the voters of California look at it and go, this is crazy. 12 countries in Europe had a wealth tax. 8 of them have repealed theirs completely. And the only one that really is there in any real sense is Spain. And the reason is they found that people left. It's easy to move from one state to another. Everyone speaks English here, okay? But the people who leave Sweden, what are you doing? You've got to go learn another language. But they do. The people who invented IKEA and other places, they move when you have those taxes. But the damage is not just people who move in the future, but or who move now in anticipation. But think of people in the Midwest who used to have $1 billion idea, and the first thing they do is fly to San Francisco to talk to the venture capitalists and say, please help me make this, my vision take place, and then we're going to make all this money, and then California will tax it. Now, if there's a wealth tax there, somebody from Indiana will go, you know what? I'm not moving to California to unleash my $1 billion idea. I go to Texas, I go to Florida, I'll go to Tennessee. There are any number of states that have no state tax. Never mind no income tax.
Yep.
Never mind a state wealth tax. So.
And you won't have to learn Swedish either. So that's the good news. Grover, thank you very much for joining us. We wish you a great weekend. America's leading taxpayer advocate, Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, live here on Motec on Money, 790 KBC.
The U.S. Soccer Podcast.
I'm your host, Megan Klingenberg, and after interviewing so many dudes during this Men's World Cup, I'm so happy to be back with my U.S. Women's National Team players.
I know the U.S. Men's National Team has changed how I think about myself, how I think about being an American, how I think about being on a team.
It's 1 year out from that World Cup, and we're going to talk about the brightest prospects in U.S. soccer. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
The U.S. Soccer Podcast, presented by Henkel. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.